Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Generation Logistics. I'm your host Ed and I'm really excited to be covering today's topic, which is computing in logistics. I'm joined by the wonderful Josh and Callum, who have come from Network Rail and Wincanton. So guys, could you introduce yourselves and let me know a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, certainly. So my name's Josh Bliscoe. I'm a programme manager for the local railway in Wales route. I particularly look after the operations, performance and any other enhancements between Cardiff, the Severn Tunnel and Swansea on the South Wales main line.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I'm a team leader for Wincanton, so I just focus everything on like RCC to distribution centre, picking, getting everything out on trailers to stores and everything like that.
Brilliant. So both sound really interesting. So what kind of jobs are available with computing within the logistics sector overall? Let's start there.
I guess where do we want to start, really? I mean, if you take a step back from computing, that could be anything almost from data analysis to performance analysis, to bring in innovations in different things like sustainability, sensors, the Internet of Things, all sorts of things across the railway and certainly across the transport sector.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And within Wincanton, what sort of logistics pieces do you have there?
Every role that you've got possible would need a bit of experience with computing because especially when you've got your KPIs, sustainability, making sure if we can get rid of paper and get it all electronised, it's perfect. Anything higher than picking, we'll need it.
And obviously, you've mentioned a various amount of topics there. We'll go into those in more detail, probably for our viewers at home who might not know what those various pieces are. How has computing transformed the logistics area in the time that you guys have been there?
Okay, who wants to take this one first? Do you want to go for that one first?
Yeah, so it's got a lot smoother. So before, when we were picking, like, for certain stores, it would have to be, like, done on a paper. So, like, the items that you had, you would have to tick off every time you pick the item. It's all
stressful.
Yeah. Now it's all on your scanner, so it's literally you see the item that you need, you scan it, you put it in your cage, and then your next one. It's just so much easier for the people that are picking, but also for the environment, everything. Just saving that piece of paper, piece of ink. It's just so much better for everyone involved.
And just so I really understand this, and for people at home. What's the process now versus obviously in the old process you were handwriting things out?
Yeah, so the process before would have been like a piece of paper and you would have like the location where it was stored. You would have to tick it off like every time that you've picked the item. As now it's all done on a computer, so like it comes on a scanner, you'll scan the barcode where it is and then you'll put it into your cage. And so your tick sheet's pretty much on your computer screen now.
And much easier to use as well.
Yeah, exactly.
No losing pieces of paper or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And within Network Rail?
Well, certainly across the railway we've had a massive change. The last 30 years have seen us change from analogue semaphore signalling all the way up to European Traffic Management System, ERTMS, where we're using moving block signalling.
For viewers at home, what does the
ERTMS, which is European Rail Traffic Management System. So this is where we're enabling signalling to be a lot more intuitive, a bit more dynamic, where we can have an increasing capacity and an increasing train control throughout the country. That is also supplemented by ETCS as well, which is European Traffic Control System, which is pretty much the new system that we're trying to roll out across the East Coast main line and eventually across the entire country, which is going to bring a lot more capacity and a lot more, improved performance in operations to our railway network.
That sounds fascinating. So that's moved from an analog joystick to this new system. Again, I'm going to forget the acronym, but it's moved on to this more a computer system. So it's sped up that process.
In a nutshell, yes.
Amazing.
We're not just limited to stuff like train operations as well. We're also looking at stuff in terms of performance, where we look at can we use stuff like Python or can we use stuff like RStudio to bring a lot more visualizations to our data, or can we even use that for intelligent wagons, or can we look at stuff like sustainability? Can we use sensors? Can we use stuff to measure carbon or sulfur emissions as well across stations and across the entire network?
Wow. And lots of talk on sustainability here, and I'm really excited to get into that because it's a really important one to our viewers at home as well as everybody in the country and the world at the moment, so we will definitely come on to that. I've been looking here at some recent examples of creatively implementing computer technologies. You mentioned a few there. It would be great, Callum, what sort of creative ways has computing technology helped within logistics?
It's just like help speed up the process, so stop pretty much the idle time, so you've always able to get on with your work, and like it's a little bit like robotics and computing's really helped my area of logistics. So instead of having to walk all the way to a cage, like the cage will come to you on a robot.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's like it's made it so much easier for the warehouse operatives, because only thing that you have to do now is scan the barcode, the store will come to you, you just have to put it in the cage.
And just because I'm really interested in this, the robot will come to you. Is this all on conveyor belts? Is this how does that actually look in the world?
So you'll have like a jumbo.
Yeah.
The robot will be like a circular disc that'll, like, when it needs to come, it'll come up. It'll lift the cage up and then it'll come to you that way.
Oh, fantastic. That's very sci-fi. I love it. So it really is advancing. You're not even having to do as many steps across.
Exactly. It looks after our staff's well-being so much more, because obviously you look at like doing 20,000 to 30,000 steps a day, and
wow.
like, exactly. Wow. Just that simple finger with the generation that we're in and with the technology available to us now, we can put that in place and we can speed up the process for the warehouse, but also look after the staff's well-being.
That's great. So you've got the care of your staff, and it's speeding up efficiencies as well. So the computing technology there is really making a difference.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What about yourself, Josh?
I'll bring two examples if I can, possibly.
Yeah.
So the first one would be, we're looking at something called remote condition monitoring, RCM, and that's almost a load of sensors being placed on certain assets throughout a railway, like points or junctions. And it gives us the opportunity to identify, do we have anything failing? Which also then gives us the opportunity to reduce our time to site and to reduce our time to fix. So that way, if we do have something that's going to creep up into a failure mode, we can go, right, we know where this is, and we know what the problem is going to be when we get to that site. So we're already ready to prepare. We're almost a fast response service for that.
I love that.
The second example I'd like to use is the introduction of something like our Microsoft Power BI, which has changed certainly in our business, moved from an Excel-based, so Microsoft Excel, where it's boring spreadsheets. I know a lot of the world runs off spreadsheets, but they can only tell you so much. Whereas we moved to Power BI, which shows us what's going on through visualization, and that all helps with the idea of don't tell me, show me, and it brings the story and the results to life a lot more.
And in that show me phase, is that how does that come across to you? Because yes, spreadsheets for a lot of us can be quite they're useful, but they might be a little bit boring. So Power BI is giving you something a little bit more physical to see. Is that right?
Physical, it brings people's creativity out as well. And people will often look more at a picture or a visual than they will at a wall of text.
Yeah.
So it's breaking down that wall that gives people a chance to understand just that little bit further, because we all tend to work in very, very, very different ways. And certainly for me as a creative person, that's how it works for me. So if it works for me, it must be working for somebody else as well.
Yeah, that's a brilliant example. Yeah, so it's fantastic ways that computing technology is moving forward the logistics industry. Then looking on the other side of that, are there any challenges that have arisen because of computing technologies? And then how do you overcome those when they do arise? Go on, I'm going to start with Callum this time.
Yeah.
There must be something in the warehouse.
Yeah, it just sets you back a couple of years, that's all. So obviously with computing and the robotics, it's made it so it's a lot easier for staff, as every now and again, if something's going wrong with robotics or the system crashes and the scanners aren't working, you just go back to your old ways of pen, paper, having to move to that cage.
All right. And is there any challenges with people who may not know that process? Maybe if I was a new starter and all I knew was the robotics way of working, do you have to do any retraining, or do people generally pick pen and paper quite well?
It's not really like any retraining, because like you've got the location where it'll be, it's just literally, we'll just tick it. We'll just give you a pen. If you haven't got that available to you, we'll supply that to you.
Brilliant.
And then with the robotics, the store, so when you scan the item, the robot will bring it to you, but it'll go back to the store location. And we've got the old layout still of the store locations. So when the robot puts it back into its natural location, the store barcode from past couple of years is still there. So it's literally, you just look down the aisle until you find your store, you scan it, you put it in the cage.
Brilliant.
Obviously, for the people that have been here a long time, that were here before the robotics, they'll probably be able to do more items quicker because they'll know where the stores are. They can go, oh, I'll just go straight there.
Yeah,
For the people that haven't been there before, they'll have to find it, but it's something that happens once every 4 months, so like it's
quite a rare occurrence.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that's something like you as a team leader would step in and you would know.
Yeah, you would assist if they don't know where it is, or like you see them looking around, you go, what store is there? And you go, oh, it's just over there, and then you try and cut down the idle time and just make sure that they're trying to get as many items in as possible, and just try and look after them as well, because if you think about walking up and down every time,
yeah, that's a lot of steps.
Yeah, exactly.
It does sound like computing is majority of the way help that along.
Yeah,
if it malfunctions, you have got a process in place.
Yeah, it's helped so much, and obviously, but it's still nice to have a backup plan instead of just being like, oh well, go and clean. It's nice to be able to go, look, we've still got ways to keep the operation running and flowing. So yeah, it's good.
Oh, I love that. And with the network rail, are there any ways that computer technologies have made life a little bit more challenging?
Yes, so Network Rail has been divided through devolution into different functions and routes and regions. And that's given people the opportunity to go down different routes to source different bits of software or coding. But also as well, that means that there's differences in the way people are working, and trying to find that single source of truth or the information that lines up can be a challenge. But it also gives people the opportunity to find their own way and grow and become more innovative. But they still need to find that single source of truth that all lines up.
So I love that. And when you're talking about single source of truth, that's sort of linking into this creativity element where people have to use a bit of logic of their own to match up with the computer logics. Is that
absolutely?
Yeah.
As well, the data within there as well must come from a single source as well. Otherwise, you're probably sending yourself down a wild goose chase.
Yeah. So, sustainability is really important. Josh, what computing practices do you have that helps with sustainability overall in the supply chain?
Yeah, certainly. So for me, sustainability means two things. There's the main side where we're looking at carbon emissions, sulfur emissions, and the green side of sustainability. But then there's also the sustainability of time as well. How can we get more time back for ourselves? So when we're just talking about carbon emissions, I've been working with partners inside the rail industry to look at, can we get sensors on locomotives or at freight sidings or at stations where we can identify, do we need to turn the locomotive off? Do we need to stop idling in stations to get the best value for fuel and for capacity and operations, whilst also reducing carbon emissions? The other side of the coin then, where I mentioned about sustainability of time, is how can we get time back for our colleagues on the ground? The longer we have an issue on the track means that the longer we're not running trains for. So if we can use a computing practice such as remote condition monitoring or also like an early flag warning, an early warning system, we can get our operatives to the track as soon as we can to get the railway running back for everybody.
Brilliant. And remote condition monitoring, that's getting people there faster, am I right?
Remote condition monitoring is in a nutshell, it's a sensor.
Right.
It would tell you, you've got a problem here, either problem yes or problem no. And if that flashes up, it'll say, right, we need to get out to the track, we need to fix something. That's what it does for us, and that's how computing has changed. We've managed to reduce our response times to key junctions, to key locations, in order to keep the supply chain flowing, be it for power stations, be it for the steelworks, be it for any aggregate sites, or indeed intermodal sites as well.
I love that. So I love the fact we talk about sustainability here, not only in terms of turning your engines off, making sure we're not throwing out those greenhouse gases and you're speeding up the process, but you're also thinking about the people in that. And I know we've spoken about that with you as well, Callum, and you mentioned, your sustainability element is making sure people on their feet aren't being run ragged, and that you're using less pen and paper. Is there anything else that's happening within your sector for sustainability?
Yeah, because with the technology of a computer and how much it's grown, we can now estimate a cube for a trailer. So
Right.
when we're getting the cages and the pallets onto a trailer for a store, we can see how much cube it's using. So we can be like, oh, we need to add more to that. So basically, we try and max the cube to the trailer, so then we're not sending half trailers to a store. And if it's not full, then we just won't send it. And we're trying to get the max out there using the diesel to locate them to stores and what's really good. And another one is at the moment we're experimenting with electric vehicles.
I love that.
At the moment they can do short distance, but long distance it's a bit of a stretch. But
Yeah.
in a couple of years,
I'm assuming
sure
you
it'll
cover
happen.
the entirety of the UK and beyond.
Yeah.
So those electric vehicles are going to be key.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And just so I've got that cemented in my mind, and for everybody at home, what you're looking at is maximising that space within each of the
Trailers, yeah.
within each of the trailers. Brilliant. And these cubes are the packing.
Yeah, so it's the space and the sizing of the jumbos, the pallets, and the space that it's allowed in the trailer. So say that they've put half a trailer full, it'll on the computer it'll say that this cube's certain amount, the maximum's this amount. So you are looking at your lanes of stuff that needs to go to that store and going, well, you can add that to trailer, you can add that to trailer to try and get it to the maximum amount that's there. And obviously you can see the cube of the pallet through the lane, because when you put it in the lane for it to get loaded on, we scan it onto the system. So you can work out what cubes are missing off the trailer, and you can be like, well, you've got a pallet there, what fits that cube? You can put that in, and then to make sure we get the maximum out of it, and we're
Brilliant.
not wasting any fuel or petrol.
That's such a clever way of doing it as well. It's not something that I would ordinarily think of, is the fact that we want to maximise each vehicle trip. That's really interesting. And you're not having to do that manually. That's all being done on the computer system.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So one of the rises in technology we are seeing at the moment is artificial intelligence and AI, and it's ever evolving. Has AI helped you streamline your businesses, and is it something that you're using at the moment?
I'm not using AI at the moment. Mostly, I work in the public sector, and if we're going to be honest, public sector doesn't always get the shiny new toys first. As I mentioned earlier on, we're still using some of our signals using levers and pulleys. That doesn't mean we're against AI. I think, if anything, we need to understand what AI can do for the railway industry, but also what questions do we want it to answer. And for me, I'm not quite sure what we would utilise the AI for. I'm sure there's plenty of questions out there. But the railway is a very broad church. There's so many different things that we can use an AI to look at. What do we want it to do? I think that's the question that needs to be asked first.
Is that something that, with the generation of AI, and where it's hitting the news a lot at the moment, is it something that perhaps the guys on the ground working in the warehouse or within your own teams, people are concerned about? Because often there's a bit of concern of, will I be replaced by AI? Is that anything you've come across?
You hear a bit of tongue-in-cheek every now and again by some warehouse ops saying that soon we'll be replaced by robots, but from my opinion, I don't see how logistics would work without human interaction.
Yeah.
I think we are. The robots aren't going to be able to replace us and do what we can do at the speed we can do.
No, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about yourself? Is there any chatter around the AI or concern about it?
I'm not afraid of AI, and I've not spoken to many people who are afraid of AI. I think one thing we always have to remember is that AI is, first of all, it's a buzzword. Here in 2024, we're talking about AI. 5 years ago, we were talking about virtual reality. 5 years before that, we were also talking about virtuality, and it's not really come to the proposal it should have been. But for me, AI is a machine. It thinks in ones and zeros. It thinks in black and white. Humans tend to think in shades of grey, and there's not really an AI that's picked up on nuance yet. So that's probably one of the first things that I've always said to people. It can't take away those little bits of nuggets of information or experience. The other part to that as well is An AI can't do manual work. It can't replace track. It can't fix a set of points. It can't do contract negotiation. It can't do HR. It can't serve you a ticket in a station. It's there. It's a tool. It's not a replacement. Utilize it as a tool. Don't think of it as a replacement. No, that's not to say don't be a Luddite. Of course, give me the tools. Think of an engineer. We always want fancy new tools, but we have to remember that not everything can be replaced by a machine. And not everything can be, all of our experiences can't be eradicated by ones and zeros.
Yeah, I love that. That's a brilliant answer. Fantastic. So we've talked about those tools and the continuous development of computer technologies. How do you train people on these pieces that come new to your sectors and overall within supply chain?
Yeah, for me, it's easier to train them than the old way, as everything with robotics and AI, as we stand, isn't to replace the warehouse ops, it's to help them. And I think that is so key as being a trainer. So before I became a team leader, I was a trainer. So I've trained new starters from when it first started, before the technology were here, to now, and it does really, it's so much easier for them to understand. And the training that took a week before this technology now takes 3 days. And
wow.
Yeah, it's so, for me, it's just so much more beneficial for them.
Yeah, so you really are saving time even in the training aspect of your colleagues. That's amazing. And do you find that it's useful to train them or to have an understanding of the old way, or is the computing logistics system completely up to scratch and you just need to focus on that?
I think when you train them, you just need to focus on that. The old way, we can still create and put out for when there's a computer issue and the system goes down, but it isn't there for when that happens. You have to retrain them. Like I said earlier, it's happened once in 3 years that I've been there. But when that happened, I think it happened 3 months ago, but when that happened, we didn't have to then go around and retrain all the new starters. It was literally like, so this is how you do it on your scanner. You just do it on pen and paper now. It's as simple as that. It's just...
So the training you're providing also has that transferable skill back into a backup plan, as it were, that sounds like you very rarely have to use.
Yeah, I think it happens, but not a lot.
Yeah, fantastic. And what about yourself, Josh? What training initiatives are into to learn these new programs?
So certainly on the railway, we've got a lot of formal training, be it through classroom-based and theory-traced. We also have our online e-learning courses as well. So for those people who are working from home, you can still utilise the classroom-based learning through stuff like our training portal. But also as well, we've got quite a strong social side on the railway as well, using internal social media networks. Yammer, formerly now known as, I can't remember what it's called, Edge nowadays.
Right.
But essentially it becomes a one-on-one mentor or educator style discussion where you could say, I have this problem. Has anybody come across it? Have you got a solution? And almost you sort of get that community growing as well, where we have data analysts coming in or we have performance analysts coming in, all discussing how can we use a particular piece of information to grow. And then we'll find that some people will take that information back to their business units as well and then teach others. So it becomes this holistic, ever-growing cycle.
And almost hub of everything.
A hub, almost like a community of, I don't know, I was going to say mushrooms then. Please don't ever put that in. Oh, my God, no. But we get that sort of ever-growing community where people will take their experience, share it with others, and then if it's something really, really worthwhile, we can nominate somebody for an award. Say, this is really, really good. This person's found this bit of information. Can we roll it out and give them a bit of recognition?
And this is all contained online, is it, on a portal, or is this face-to-face?
The majority of it's online, but we also do face-to-face. We've got to remember our railway network runs all the way from Thurso in the north down to Penzance in the south.
Yeah.
So there's very, very few opportunities to get everybody together. But there is one thing that's called the Network Performance Seminar. Now, that's held by the Rail Delivery Group. And that's usually held centrally in the country, where we get the performance communities together to discuss the latest finding in innovation or computing or programs or best practice. Sometimes just having those very small discussions about best practice mean a lot more than classroom-based learning.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that is a seminar led by a separate entity.
That is, yes, it's led by the rail team.
Brilliant. So it's an educational time for everyone to get together and take key practices.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. And then thinking about that in terms of qualifications, what sort of qualifications would you need to go into the roles that you have?
I'm going to be brutally honest here.
Yeah.
I don't have a degree.
Right.
I also have some very, very poor A-levels. So for me to turn around and say that what qualifications do you need, I can't necessarily fly the flag, say that you need a particular qualification. I've learned everything on the job. And I think it's been the best education for me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, that's really great. And what about yourself, Callum? Is there a particular qualifications you would advocate people to have in your roles?
Not really. I think you can get there both ways. There's an operations manager at our site that started from agency and has worked all his way up to an operations manager. Same story with an FLM manager. They started on agency and worked their way up. Obviously, it takes longer.
Yeah.
But it is possible to do it both ways. So you can go and get a degree and it's sort of like a fast track.
Right.
Or you can just work your way up, and if you believe in your own ability, that's all that really matters. You need to be able to have the belief and be like, yeah, I've got the confidence to make it, and that's all that really any employer is looking for, is that self-belief, that confidence to be like, yeah, I can make an impact for this company.
That's fantastic.
You've raised a really, really good point there. For me, I've seen, one of the best things I've seen online is somebody almost had a portfolio of their work that they've done. Right. Almost like, think of an artist or a photographer where you might bring in your photographs or your works of art. Why don't you bring in some examples of your coding or some examples of the stuff you've built through, be it open source software or anything like that? Show us what you can do. You don't need a qualification to be a photographer. You don't need a qualification to be a story writer. So technically, that means you don't need a qualification necessarily to be a world-class computing coder or a programmer.
Yeah.
Give it a go.
I love that. So that there is that opportunity for those who are looking for this. And if any of our viewers are looking to get involved with this, there are always open applications. I know that we work with Not Going to Uni, and they often have ways into these roles as well, so always check that out. We've talked a little about the social side of your role, particularly here, and those seminars and everything else. Callum, do you have anything like that within your world? What's the social aspect of your role within the warehouse and being a team leader?
So we have like events every couple of months. A lot of it goes to charity. So like in May we're gonna have like a pool tournament, and your first couple of rounds are on site, and then you go to like a pool venue, and like after the pool venue is done, we'll go out, and just so it's not just a group of work employees. If they want to become friends, there's that opportunity there. We have a fun day every year. I think
I'll explain more about a fun day. I love the sound of this.
So it's just like in summer, like it's just like a little festival. Like there's a drinking area, there's rides, and just it's a way for people that maybe won't see each other out of work to build a relationship that's not a in-work relationship. It's like they can build a friendship from that.
Yeah.
And charity events, mostly. So like soon we've got a walk. So we're going to walk a marathon, and all that goes to a good cause. Charity are our site's choice. What's really good, but it's not just about. So the charity is the main reason for it, but for me as a team leader, it's about building the connections. So while I'm going for that walk, the people that are on that walk, I'm going to be like speaking to, not as a manager, but I'm going to speak on the well-being, welfare, make sure that they're all right, and just let them know that we're not just managers, we are human beings, and we're always there for them. And we have work phones, but I've always made it quite clear to people that have raised issues to me that if they've got an issue, you can always ring my work phone, and no matter if it's on shift, off shift, I'll answer. And we have the same as Josh with Edge.
Yeah.
You can send messages on there. So once again, there's multiple connections that you can build now with your employees, not just as employees but as people. And I think it's good for me to be able to showcase myself, not just as a manager but as a person, so that I can build them connections. So then, if they're in crisis at a time when they're not at work, I can still be there for them.
I love that, and hats off to you for doing that, because there definitely needs to be more managers who can show that level of sensitivity. As you say, we are all human, and I think that's really important. And when is the walk that you're all doing?
1st of June.
Ah, brilliant. Well, best of luck to all of you getting involved with that, because that's really, really key. So we've talked about training opportunities. How have you guys personally progressed within your careers, and what would you say to anybody who's watching, how they would progress within the fields that you're in?
Yeah, sure. So I spent probably 2 years trying to get into the railway industry. Everybody thinks about the railway industry as the big ticket item, as every boy's got that dream of being a train driver once upon a time. And I was applying for ages to get through to that. I'm thinking, am I aiming too high to get in here first? So I went into Network Rail at the lowest level to become a train planner. And that was in 2012. I met my wife on my second week inside that job, and we've sort of progressed through the career together to the point where you've got that. Once you're in, you can go anywhere you want to go. If you wanted to go into operations, or you want to go into performance, or you want to go anywhere else in engineering, you can do it. The door is open. For me, I always subscribe to Steve Jobs' philosophy of stay hungry, stay foolish. Basically be curious and take something away to learn. And I've always had that idea of, what have I learned today? When I get home, I get to decompress, and I go, right, what have I learned today? And if I can say I've learned this or I've learned that, I'm happy. And therefore that keeps me going forward, further with that experience, with that knowledge. But I would also say to some people, don't be afraid to take a sideways move as well. Sometimes it's not always about money. Sometimes it's not always about line management. Don't be afraid to go sideways, because you might find the next best thing. You might find a talent that you've had that you didn't know you had. And give it a go. Don't be afraid to take the plunge.
Yeah.
You have the full control in your life. Go for it.
That's brilliant. I love that. Some really, really cracking advice. So, what kind of long-term opportunities are there within both of your careers after somebody's taken an apprenticeship? And where can they go? And where are you guys aiming to go as well? I'll kick off with Callum. You look like you've got some thoughts in your mind there.
I think you can go as far as you want. I think it's simple as that. If you're hungry enough, you can. All the way up to CEO. It's just one of them things. It depends on how much effort you want to put in. The more you put in, the more you'll get out of it.
Brilliant. And is there a step-by-step approach? Is it quite obvious within your company how to progress, or is that something that is done more on a case-by-case basis?
No, I think it's just more step-by-step. Most of the time you'll start with agency, then you'll become a core employee, and then after that you don't have to go into being an instructor and a trainer and training the new starters, but it's one of them experiences that it's good to have. Gets you used to speaking to people that maybe you wouldn't have before you then go into a team leader, that FLM role, and then you just follow your company's ladder. You just keep on working hard and keep on proving your worth to that company.
Fantastic. I love that. And you've mentioned you're hungry and where you're going. Is that something you're looking for at this stage?
Yeah, I don't like to think about long-term aims. If it happens, it happens, and that's how I see it. I put in hard work, I put in the work, and I just let the opportunities come to me. Brilliant.
I love that. And Josh, what about yourself? Same question.
I've sort of found my way within the industry. So I don't have a long-term plan. I know people who have 5-year plans. I know people who have managed to reach I want to be a band 3 before 30. I think that's fantastic, the way that you have that drive. But for me, I've never really been driven by that. I've always looked for, am I content? Am I kept happy? Am I curious about this role, and do I want to learn more about it? Now, I'm probably, whether that's got anything to do with luck or whether it's got anything to do with coincidence, that's always kept me going. However, if you did want to progress, certainly inside the railway industry, we do have a lot of management programs. So if you want to become a general manager or an advanced manager, we've got courses like that. We've got stuff such as if you want to look into IOSH or NEBOSH, we can push forward to get you those qualifications to get you to a particular role, be it engineering, be it security, be it safety, or maybe you just want to become really, really advanced in computing. You can go forward with that. Similarly, there's plenty of other opportunities you can go for.
What advice would you guys give to young people looking to get into a career with computing within logistics? Josh, let's kick off with you.
Yeah, sure. Show me what you got. I mentioned earlier about a portfolio. Bring something to the table that's going to blow me out of the water, or something that we don't do that you think you can bring. If you haven't got that expertise, tell us. Maybe get in touch with us before the interview. Say, ask us what our challenges are. As an interview, it's not for me to ask you questions. It's for both of us to ask questions. It's a two-way channel. And if you can't do that, be curious. Ask us what our challenges are and how you might be able to play a bit of a part in that. Show me that you're curious. Show me that you can do something different that we can't do. The more you bring that expertise, the more you bring that energy, we're probably going to invest in you.
Yeah, I love that. And it is really important. I think that's a great piece of advice to ask questions even and reach out. A lot of us can be quite nervous to do that, so that's brilliant advice. Thank you.
There's no such thing as a stupid question, and you don't have to wait for the interview to ask questions either.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. And Callum, what about yourself? What advice would you give to young people trying to get to where you're at?
I think for me, I wouldn't just my only advice would be don't be scared to drop down a role. If you're passionate and you're hungry for it, don't be scared to drop down a role that you want and be like, all right, I've applied for this, I didn't hear up back, let me drop down a role. And then once you're in the company, then you can prove your worth.
Right, so it's almost like getting your foot in the door and being able to prove yourself with your grit, your drive and hunger, as you both said during this podcast. That's great advice. And how would you suggest they go and talk to a line manager about that, or reapply? What would be your suggestion?
So for me, I would apply, and then for the role that you want at first, if you don't hear all back, then you just send a quick email, and you're like, oh, I'm just wondering what's the feedback, if it's I ain't got the experience and stuff like that. And then hopefully if you apply for that role, you should have a little bit of knowledge of what roles are underneath it and what roles you need to show you can do before you can get to that one. If you don't, then most of the time when you apply for a role, there's an email, there's a phone number, you can always ring up, and we'll be more than happy to go, this is the reason why, but be more than free to apply for this role. And more, if we see that they've applied for a role higher up and then now they're looking at going one step down, it shows that they're not just coming to work, they're coming to work and develop, and they're hungry for success.
That's brilliant advice. Thank you both so much for your time and coming along. Thank you so much to everybody who's been watching at home. If you want more information, you can get it at generationlogistics.org. My name is Ed, and I look forward to seeing you in future episodes.